All right. Let's do our Pro Tools. Let's get our Pro Tools going. So as of this recording here, I still don't know whether students are going to be able to get a free Pro Tools license for 90 days or not. I'm working that. Curtis is working on that, and I'll let you know in class, right? So when the COVID thing happened, excuse me, when the COVID thing happened, way back when the lockdown started, Avid and actually a bunch of audio software manufacturers and hardware and plugins and a bunch of other people, what they did is they offered free licenses to students who were stuck at home and they weren't able to get to the studio, right? And so I'm not sure if that's still going on right now. Hopefully it is, and hopefully you guys are going to be able to use Pro Tools. Now, why do I want you guys to use Pro Tools? Any DAW actually will work fine. There's Apple has Logic, Steinberg's got Cubase, Ableton has Live. There's a bunch of Sony's got Vegas. I don't know. There's a bunch of them out there, right? And what I'm talking about is not so much MIDI stuff. I'm talking really about an audio recording and editing and mixing software, right? That's generally focused on recording instruments, recording vocals, recording dialogue, that sort of thing. So there's a bunch of them out there. A bunch of them offer these free licenses, and so hopefully you guys will be able to use Pro Tools. Pro Tools is really, I don't want to say it's the standard, that's what everybody says, but it kind of is. If you go pretty much, if you have an interest in being an audio engineer, producer, professional one, and working in studios and actually making a living doing it, you're going to have to learn Pro Tools. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. It is sort of the studio standard for digital audio workstations. It allows you to record, mix, edit, do auto tuning, so tuning people's vocals and things like that, make people play in time. It's pretty amazing. Most of them do the same. Most of the digital audio workstations do the same thing, but it just so happens that Pro Tools is the one that everybody uses, right? Probably like 85% of every professional studio, if not more, use Pro Tools. And in audio for video world, like doing audio for movies, videos, TV shows, TV commercials, Pro Tools is really the thing. There really isn't there's not really an alternative like there is in music. Pro Tools kind of is what it is. So hopefully you'll be able to use Pro Tools. I'll show you guys in class how to, if you want to buy it, Now, typically I would say, I encourage students not to, or I discourage people from buying Pro Tools while they're in school. The reason is because we have a studio and we've got all sorts of equipment, we got microphones, we have software, anything that you need, we have it at ACC. Unfortunately, last semester and this semester, we don't have access to that stuff. So maybe you want to buy it, maybe you don't. Hopefully, like I said, you get a free license. Anyway, a couple of things. Installing Pro Tools on a Mac is dead easy, super simple. You just click it, install it, it goes, right? With Windows, it's a little bit more difficult. And it's not so much, it's actually not Windows. The only people that make Macs, the only company that makes Macs is Apple. That's it, right? And they control what hardware is used to make a Mac, right? Intel motherboards, Intel chipsets, Intel processors, good video cards. It's all kind of high-end stuff. It's all the good stuff, right? It's all tested in it where they know it works, right? The problem with Windows is that anybody can build a Windows machine and they can build it with any piece of equipment, anything that they can find, right? And so if you buy or build yourself a PC, if you will, out of good components, known and tested stuff, great. It's going to work. No problem installing Pro Tools or any other DAW for that matter, digital audio workstation. On the other hand, if you don't know what's in that box, or the box is made with who knows what from who knows where, you might have some problems, right? So that's just a word of warning here. I've used, right now I use Pro Tools on a Mac. It works great. I've used, for quite a while, I used Pro Tools on a Windows box, and it works great as well. No problems at all. So either way, it doesn't really matter. You just got to make sure the box that you're using is a good one, right? That's the key. The first thing you need to do is on Windows, again, like on a Mac, super easy, right? First thing you need to do on Windows is make sure your sound card, right, or an interface, right, your interface is set up and working properly, right? Hopefully you guys know how to do that. Let me grab something here. You might be asking, what is an interface? An interface is a device that allows you to get audio from the real world into your computer, right? I am using a little super inexpensive Focusrite Scarlett, right? It's sitting right down there. I've got my lavalier microphone plugged into it. I got my headphone, I got all that stuff plugged into that. That's kind of how you're hearing me, but this is what I'm using right here, right? I have a much more expensive interface that I own. It's in my closet right there. I'm not going to drag it out and use it. This one works fine for what I'm using right now. And of course, I work in recording studios, and they have, of course, phenomenal stuff. Arlen, Pedernales, Ohm, used to be Ohm, Cedar Creek, a bunch of different studios that I've worked at. They have really good equipment, right? But anyway, this is actually, it works pretty good. You might think about getting yourself one of these if you don't have one yet, right? Again, with Mac, this is super easy. I just plug it in, it works, no problem, right? With Windows, it's a little more complex, but it's not that big of a deal. So there you go. That's what I'm using. You might want to use it. So whether you're using an interface like this or using the sound card in your computer, sound card is just an interface, right? If you're using a sound card in your computer, make sure that it's working, right, properly. Once you've got that going, let me show you how to do this, right? I can't really show you how to install Pro Tools because mine's already installed. So let me go to Pro Tools here. Right? And pardon me for looking at a different screen because I've got another screen there, right? I'm going to check this out. I'm going to do this here. This random thing here. There you go. Look at here. So let's go to this guy here. Check it out. All right, so I've got my Pro Tools here. I'm going to cancel out of this guy here. I'm going to go, let me show you something here. I'm going to go to, up here in the menu, right? I'm going to go to Setup, and I'm going to go to Playback Engine, right? I'm going to drag this over here to this window. Oop, drag it over here to this window. Playback Engine defines what interface or sound card or whatever, what hardware you're going to use to get audio into and out of your computer, right? So if you see here, I'm using this thing called Loopback Audio. Loopback Audio is a software thing, right? And I'm only using that because that's how I'm getting audio from my Pro Tools and my interface, the Scarlett thing that I showed you guys. That's how I'm getting it into this video that you guys are watching, right? But typically, it would be something else. Like, for example, if you look over here, I have a Scarlett, right? So I could actually use the Scarlett to get audio in and out of my Pro Tools system, right? By the way, every digital audio workstation is going to have something that looks kind of like this, right? So I could use Scarlett, I could use HDMI, I could use any of these things. So built-in microphone and built-in output, that is my sound card of my computer. I could be using that too if I wanted to, right? But I'm using Loopback Audio. On your system, you're not going to see hardly any of this stuff. What you're going to see mostly is built-in output or input, built-in mic, something like that. You can actually use the audio from your webcam if you have a webcam, right? I hope you do, because I don't like looking at like a thing when we have class. Just like a, you know, your whatever, your little picture or something. I want to see your face, right? Anyway, you can choose your microphone. Again, microphone, built-in input, built-in output, that would be your sound card, right? So anyway, that's the first thing you're going to do when you boot up your Pro Tools system is you're going to choose whatever interface you're going to use, right? Then we're going to click this guy here, right? And what we're also going to do, just to make sure, is we're going to go to Setup, and I'm going to go to something called I/O. This is all stuff that you're going to end up learning at some point or another. Again, whatever digital audio workstation you actually end up using, you're going to have to configure this. I'm going to show you how to do it in Pro Tools. Let me drag this guy out here, right? Up here, right, this is my interface. Here is my ins and outs over here, right? What you're going to want to do is just hit default, right? If you hit default, it'll work well, right? There's another video that's more detail if you want to look into that one. I've got it on my YouTube channel, right? I'll give you a link for that a little bit later on. But anyway, this is my I/O setup. Just make sure that it looks right. There's my input, right? Here's my output and buses, right? All stuff that maybe I'm sure you don't know what any of this means, but, right? You just want to make sure that there's a built-in output right there. Right? Again, just hit default and you'll be cool, right? Actually, you know what? Let me do this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to get rid of this guy. I click it and I hit delete. I go to output. I click that one and I hit delete. I go to buses. I'm going to click each one of these and delete like this, right? Now in Pro Tools, if you hold the Option key down, it selects all. If I'm holding the Option key down, right? You have to trust me. I click and there they all are. I'm going to hit delete, right? Insert, okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Input tab up here and I'm going to say Default. There we go. Output tab, Default. Bus, Default. There it is, right? And I don't need to do anything with the other ones, right? So I'm going to hit OK. And I should be ready to go, right? Cool. Actually, I'm going to show you one more thing. Come back to here. Once you've got this set up properly, what you can do is save it, right? You're going to go to Export Settings. You click Export, and it asks you, hey, what do you want to call that? And what do you want to call what do you want to call this I/O setup, right? And you just name it something, you know, whatever, and you hit save, and it saves it for you. So what's cool about that is every time you boot up Pro Tools, and I'll show you this in here in a second, every time you boot up Pro Tools, what you're going to end up doing is using that same one, right? Anyway, right? So there you go. Right? At any time, pause the video and go back and watch if you need to, right? This stuff is kind of important, right? Now, if there's a lot of little gotchas with Pro Tools, right? Because they're assuming you're a professional. And so there's a lot of little gotchas that you might run into. It's important to methodically go through some of these things, kind of like I'm showing you, right? Anyway, that I/O setup, that hardware setup, once we got that set up, we should be good to go. We shouldn't have to really fiddle with any of that stuff, right? So, how do you get Pro Tools going? What I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me see here, I'm going to open up I'm going to go to this thing here, open up a new thing here. Check this out. I'm going to open up a Pro Tools Quick Start Guide, which is in Blackboard for you guys to download, right? I'm going to go to, let's see here, it's going to be down here. And there we go. I think you can see that. Let me see here. Pro Tools, I think I got it in there. So, here we go. Pro Tools Quick Start Guide. Open that guy up. All right. Pro Tools. That's silly. Silly Dan. There we go. I have to fix that. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch Pro Tools, use the alias on the desktop, or choose Pro Tools from the dock, or a shortcut if you're in Windows, right? So I'm going to come over here. You guys can't see it because it's in my other window, so I'm going to hit Pro Tools. There it is. How I know that I'm using Pro Tools is there it is right up there, right? Now, Pro Tools isn't like a lot of apps. Pro Tools is not going to open up a new window for you or prompt you about a lot of things. What it's going to do is going to just show you. Actually, you know what? Let me show you what happens when you boot up Pro Tools first. So I'm going to quit Pro Tools there. I'm going to come over here. We're going to launch Pro Tools. You get a little dialog box, right? There we go. It's coming. It's booting. It's on the other screen. It's on the other screen. All right, here we go. Look at here. This is the dialog box that pops up when you want to do it, right? And there we go. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this test. So check this out. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new session, right? And it says create. Right, so there it is. So flipping back and forth there. So after Pro Tools, you see a dialog box prompting you. You're going to have to start a new session. You're going to choose create. Make sure local storage has been clicked and prompt for location. So I'm going to go to local storage, right? And down here it says prompt for location. You want Pro Tools to ask you where to put it, right? Because you don't want Pro Tools to put it in some random place, right? So there we go, right? So then if we come over here, you're going to ask me to define the sample rate and the bit depth is number 3, right? And choose 44.1 for most sessions, 48K. So these are the things you're going to actually come in here and do, right? We're going to choose 44.1. Now, usually you have the ability to choose that sample rate, right? The sample rates are 44.1 kilohertz, 48, 88.2, 96, 176.4, and 192 in Pro Tools. There are some higher ones, but you won't see those in Pro Tools. The reason I can't choose another one, and that one's kind of locked into 44.1, is because I'm using this loopback thing that I showed you earlier, right? So there we go, right? 44.1 for the moment is good enough for most people. 96 is kind of the standard nowadays, right? But I'm going to use that. This is not important, right? Bit depth, I'm choosing 32-bit floating point, but you can choose 16 or 24. The higher the number, the better. Same thing with sample rate. 192 is a lot better than 44.1, right? And I/O settings, this is like super important, right? Remember, this is that thing that we set up earlier where we said default and, we deleted the other one, made default and all that. That's what this is here. I've saved one, and mine is, I'm using loopback, right? And so I'm using loopback, and so I've got to choose loopback, right? Because I'm using loopback as my audio hardware, right? I have to use the loopback setting, so I'm choosing that one. You're going to choose the one that you saved, right? If you just want to get going and you don't want to save one and go through all that, just choose stereo mix. That'll more than likely work well, right? So I'm choosing loopback. Whatever you do, don't use last used. Where it says last, don't use that one. That's bad news right there. All right, so I'm going to hit create session. It's going to ask me, hey, where do you want to put this session? I'm going to say, I'll just put it in the Audio 101 sessions folder. That'll work good. And I'm going to call it test. There we go. There it is. And we're going to make there we go. So I'm going to pull this. There we go. And that's what you do. Now, so if we come over here, right? There we go. You're going to be part of them. So then the session number 5, the session will boot and the session windows will pop up. You'll need to add tracks by selecting the track menu and choosing new tracks. You're going to be prompted to define how many tracks you want to create, and you have the choice of mono or stereo. More than likely, you're going to be choosing mono. So let's do that. Here I am. I'm on the... So there's two windows. There's the edit window. This is this one here. You'll see this in a second. And then there's the mix window. And that's, if I go to the window menu and click on mix, it shows me the mix window. I'm going to choose some new tracks. So I go to the track menu and choose new, right? And here we go. It's going to ask me how many. Let's say 16, right? And oops, 16. There we go. And I can choose mono or stereo. If you're working in movies, and I can't do that here because I don't have an interface that can support this, but if you're doing movies, you'll probably get a 5.1 or 5.1, 7.1, or even Atmos. The big thing now is Atmos. And so since I don't have any of that, we're going to choose mono. And there's a bunch of different kinds of audio tracks. You're going to just choose audio track for the moment. A lot more on this later, all right? And you can leave this stuff here. I'm going to name, well, we'll name the tracks later. Here we go, create. There's my 16 tracks, right? The reason they call it a mixer window because it looks kind of like a mixer, right? It's like a virtual mixer, software mixer. And there it is, right? Let's go back to preview here, all right? Number 6, you're going to need to configure the input signal routing. So you're going to go to the window menu and click mix, right? You can use that shortcut. Command equals, right? This window, you're going to go to the routing section of the channel, strip, and choose the input source for the channel. What I mean by that is you're going to choose where your microphone is plugged in, right? I have a microphone, the one that you're listening to, is plugged into input number 1 of my interface, right? And so if I were to record something, I would click 1. There we go. And then I could actually record on input 1, right? So there you go. And if I were going to record a band, this would look something like, of course, I have to have an interface that would support this. If we're going to record a band all in the same room, let's say I have a bunch of drum mics, 12 drum mics, a bass mic, a couple of keyboards, and let's say I have all these 16 microphones in the room, all the musicians playing together with headphones on. This would look like track 1 would be input 1, track 2 would be input 2, track 3 would be input 3, track 4 would be input 4, and so on and so forth, right, all the way to 16. That's how that would look, right? In this particular case, we just got one mic, so everything's going to go in 1. So I could go through each one of these and click 1, click it again, click 1, click here, 1, and so forth. I hope you're seeing that, right? So that's how you would do that. Now, I can hold Option down and make them all 1, right? There we go, right? I can also, well, anyway, that's, again, just be simple so you guys can record some stuff if you want to fart around at your house, right? Or maybe bring your friends in, right? Unfortunately, I don't have an interface that can show you how to do a band. But what I will say is, again, like I was already saying, if you're going to do an entire band, right, and you have 16 microphones, right, the track number 1 is going to be 1, track number 2 is going to be 2, track number 3 is going to be 3, track number 4 is going to be 4, and so on and so forth, right? What that means, you have a microphone on each individual instrument, right? So one microphone on the bass, another on the guitar, another microphone on the second guitar, one on the vocals, a couple of mics on a piano, one microphone on the bass drum, another one on the snare. You guys get the idea, right? Now, we have to configure the output routing. Now, in Pro Tools, because we don't have a mixer, everything is being mixed in the software, right? So everything's being mixed in the computer itself, right? So you have to tell each one of these tracks to go to a virtual place called out 1 and 2, right? It's actually not a virtual place, but, right, for the computer it is, right? So there it is. It goes to out 1 and 2. And I don't have any other choices because all I've got is 2 outputs. I have an output 1 on the back of this guy and output 2, and that's it. So that's the only way the audio can go, right? So that's it. So output 1 and 2. Now what that does is it forces all of the audio that's inside of the software to go to one place, right? Outputs 1 and 2. That means it all has to get mixed together before it leaves the computer, right? So we're mixing in the computer and then sending it out, right? So that's how, again, there's a lot more to this, but again, this is how you can get started, all right? And here's your pan knobs. This sends stuff to the left. This sends stuff to the right. Right? If you want to record stuff, you just hit that red button right there, and you can see my vocal right there, right? And then you just record, right? All right, let's go over here. I'm going to go to the other window, right? So you go to Window menu. I'm going to click Edit. Now it's probably going to sound kind of weird because of my loop back, but don't worry about that, right? I'll just show you how to record stuff, right? So I'm going to arm this track like that. It's going to sound weird, but I'm arming that track, right? And then for me to actually make it record, there's a couple of different things I can do. If you look up here, right, this is my transport, right? So what I can do if I want to record, I hit the record button, then I hit play. Now I'm recording. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. If I don't like that, I can click Command Z, right? Or if you're on Windows, that would be Control Z, right? That doesn't, that's an undo, right? The other way I can record, depending on what kind of computer you have and your keyboard layout and everything else, you can hit F12, right? Or you can hit Command and Spacebar, right? Or you could hit 3 on a number pad if your computer actually has a number pad. I'm going to hit 3 on a number pad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Spacebar stop. Oops, I'm sorry. There's a little bit of distortion. Spacebar stops. Spacebar also plays. So to go back, I mean, I can use all this stuff right here. That takes me back to the beginning. That takes me to the very end. This rewinds, this fast forwards. So all the stuff, anything that you need to do, you can do with that thing here, but man, that's a drag. So use your shortcuts, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit, to go back to the beginning, I'm going to hit the return or the enter key, and it goes back to the beginning. The play command, the play shortcut is the space bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's pretty much all you need, right? So rewind or go back to the beginning is return or enter, and spacebar is play and stop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. There we go. Or you can use the little things on the top, right? There we go. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'll point you to some other videos here in a second, but that's how to get started, right? That's how you get started. So hopefully you're watching the video, and if you have some questions, we're going to cover this in class. Ask me a bunch of questions in class, and I'll answer them. All right, it's pretty cool. All right, so coming up next is the mixing lab. Let me show you how to do that. All right, see you guys in a bit. Be right back.